I was 7 months pregnant when I found the texts. Not the usual kind, no heart emojis, no "I miss you, baby" nonsense. These were worse. So much worse. Once she delivers, we move fast. CPS report filed same day. I'll have the emergency custody papers ready. My hands were shaking so bad I nearly dropped my phone. This was my husband, Nick, the man who rubbed my swollen feet every night, who brought me decaf coffee every morning, who kissed my belly and whispered to our daughter. The response came from a contact labeled M. Work. Melissa, his coworker, the one who'd been so sweet to me, bringing me pregnancy books and offering advice. "I already have the nursery set up at your mom's. The lawyer says with the evidence we've built, she won't stand a chance." I sat there on our bathroom floor, cold tile against my legs, reading message after message. 6 months of planning, 6 months of them systematically destroying my life while smiling to my face. And I'd missed every single sign. You know that moment when your whole world just stops? When everything you thought was real turns out to be a lie? That's where I was. Except I had 48 hours until a custody hearing I didn't even know about. I should probably explain how I got here. I'm Harper, 27, working as a graphic designer from home, which seemed perfect when we found out I was pregnant. Nick and I had been married 3 years. Good years, I thought. We had a little house in the suburbs, a golden retriever named Scout. We'd been trying for a baby for 8 months when it finally happened. I remember the day I told him. He cried. Actually cried happy tears. Spun me around in the kitchen, called his mom immediately. For someone who was apparently planning to steal my baby, he put on one hell of a performance. Looking back, I was so stupidly trusting, but there I was, scrolling through months of messages, and every sweet gesture suddenly made horrible sense. The prenatal vitamins I kept forgetting to take. He'd been hiding them. The photos he took of our messy living room during my exhausted days. Evidence? The times Melissa randomly stopped by with wine saying, "Just a taste won't hurt." She'd been photographing the bottles in my car. My stomach twisted. Not the baby kicking, pure panic. They'd been documenting everything, creating a narrative, building a case that I was unstable, unfit, dangerous. I kept reading, found messages about hiding my car keys so I'd miss appointments. About Nick's lawyer friend who owed him a favor and would testify about my erratic behavior. About his mother, sweet, grandmotherly Carol, who was apparently ready to swear in court that she'd witnessed my drinking problem. The worst part? There was a message from 3 weeks before I even got pregnant, before we were even trying. Found the perfect surrogate. Just need to make it legal after. I wasn't his wife. I was an incubator. And once I delivered, I was disposable. My daughter kicked hard against my ribs like she knew, like she was telling me to fight. So I took screenshots. Every single message. My hands steadied as I worked. The shock was wearing off. Something else was taking its place. Rage. Cold, focused rage. I heard Nick's key in the front door. Heard him call out, "Honey, I'm home!" in that cheerful voice I'd loved for 5 years. The voice that had whispered plans to steal my baby. I deleted my text history with myself, cleared the screenshots from his phone, and walked out of that bathroom like nothing had happened. "Hey, babe," I said, letting him kiss my cheek. "How was work?" "Good. Long." He smiled, that warm smile that used to make me melt. "How's my girl?" He wasn't talking about me. He never was. "She's active today." I touched my belly. Our daughter. My daughter. The baby they thought they could just take. 2 days later, a process server knocked on our door. Nick answered, accepted the papers, turned to me with this practiced expression of concern. "Harper, honey, we need to talk." I took the papers. Emergency custody petition. Scheduled hearing in 48 hours. Allegations of substance abuse, mental instability, endangering an unborn child. 3 affidavits attached. His mother's, and Melissa's. "What is this?" I whispered. Academy Award-worthy confusion. "I didn't want to do this." He actually looked sad. "But you're not well. The drinking, the mood swings. I have to protect our baby. So was I wrong to keep quiet? Should I have confronted him right there, told him I knew everything? Or was I right to start planning something bigger? Because trust me, I had 48 hours, and I wasn't wasting them crying. I spent that night alone in our guest room, my hand on my belly, making promises to my daughter. They thought I was weak, thought I was too pregnant, too emotional, too trusting to fight back. They had no idea who they were dealing with. What they didn't know was that I'd already started gathering my own evidence, that I knew exactly what they'd been doing, that while they were planning my downfall, I was planning their destruction. But first, I needed them to think they'd won. The next morning, I played my part perfectly, tearful, confused, broken. I called Nick's mom, begging her to tell me what I'd done wrong. She was so convincing, her voice full of fake sympathy. "Oh, sweetie, we just want what's best for the baby. You need help, real help." I agreed to see the psychiatrist she recommended, didn't mention that I knew he was Nick's college roommate, didn't let on that I'd already contacted my own lawyer, Tony, who'd handled my business contracts and who definitely didn't owe Nick any favors. That afternoon, Melissa came by, brought soup, held my hand. "I know this is hard," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "But Nick's doing this because he loves you, and that baby deserves a stable home." "Your home," I thought. "The nursery you've already set up, the life you've already planned with my husband and my child." "You're right," I said instead. Let my voice crack. "Maybe I do need help." She hugged me. This woman who was trying to steal my daughter hugged me, and I let her, because I needed her to think I was giving up. If you've ever had to smile at someone who's destroying your life, you know how much that costs, how much strength it takes to not scream, not rage, not let them see that you know. But I did it because I had a plan. That night, after Nick fell asleep, I went through everything, 6 months of evidence they'd created, and 6 months of actual evidence I was about to create. See, they'd been so focused on making me look unstable, they'd forgotten something crucial. I was a designer. I knew cameras. I knew recording equipment, and I definitely knew how to document the truth. I installed hidden cameras in every room of our house, tiny ones, invisible ones, the kind that uploaded straight to a cloud account Nick didn't know existed. Then I called the one person I knew I could trust, Sarah, my OB/GYN, who also happened to be my college roommate, who had 6 months of medical records showing I was the healthiest pregnant woman she'd ever seen. "Harper," she said when I explained everything. Her voice was shaking. "I'll testify. I'll bring every record. Blood work, ultrasounds, everything. He's lying about all of it." "I know." I was calm now. Ice-cold calm. "I just need you to document it officially. Every appointment, every test. Can you do that?" Already printing it. I also hired a private investigator. Ethan, former cop, specialized in domestic cases. Gave him one job: follow Melissa. "Find out everything," I told him. "Where she goes, who she talks to. Everything." It took him 3 days. 3 days of Nick thinking he'd broken me. 3 days of Melissa playing concerned friend. 3 days of me acting defeated. Then Ethan called. "You're not going to believe this," he said, "but Melissa had a miscarriage. Last year. Lost the baby at 6 months. Her husband left her. She's been in therapy for obsessive behavior. And Harper? She's been buying baby clothes for months, has a whole nursery set up in her apartment, with your baby's name on the wall." My blood ran cold. "How does she know her name?" "Security camera at your house. She's been watching. They both have." That's when I knew. This wasn't just about Nick wanting out. This was about Melissa wanting in, wanting my baby, my life, everything, and Nick was giving it to her. The custody hearing was in 5 hours. I'd let Nick think I was too broken to fight, let Melissa think her plan had worked, let them believe they'd won. But I had something they didn't expect: the truth. All of it. Documented, recorded, time-stamped. I walked into that courthouse holding a flash drive with 6 months of evidence: emails, texts, videos, medical records, bank statements showing Nick had frozen our accounts for the baby's protection. Documentation of every lie, every planted piece of evidence, every calculated move. Nick's lawyer looked confident. Nick looked confident. Even Melissa, sitting in the back of the courtroom, looked confident. They shouldn't have. Do you think 6 months of planning is enough to steal someone's baby? Or do you think a mother's instinct is stronger? Comment below. Because what happened next changed everything. The judge called the hearing to order. Nick's lawyer stood first, started listing their allegations: my drinking, my instability, my inability to care for a child. Then Tony stood up. Your Honor, the respondent would like to present evidence that everything Mr. Carter has alleged is not only false but criminally fabricated. Nick's face went white. Melissa half stood in her seat. His lawyer looked confused. We have 6 months of text messages between Mr. Carter and Ms. Melissa Green detailing their plan to, and I quote, build a case for emergency custody before Mrs. Carter even conceived. The bailiff handed the judge the flash drive. Every message, every photo, every calculation. We also have video evidence of Ms. Green planting alcohol bottles in Mrs. Carter's vehicle, medical records showing Mrs. Carter has had 0 alcohol in her system at any prenatal appointment, and testimony from Dr. Sarah Blackwell documenting Mrs. Carter's exemplary prenatal care. Nick was sweating now, actually sweating. His lawyer was frantically whispering to him. Melissa had gone completely still. Additionally, Tony continued, his voice steady and cold, we have evidence that Ms. Green has been stalking Mrs. Carter, has a nursery prepared with the baby's name, information she obtained illegally through hidden cameras, and has been receiving psychiatric treatment for obsessive behavior following her own pregnancy loss. The courtroom was dead silent. The judge was reading through everything. Her face was getting harder with every page. Mr. Carter, she said finally, would you like to explain why you texted Ms. Green, and I quote, once she delivers, we move fast. I'll have emergency custody papers ready? Nick opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Or perhaps you'd like to explain these photos of a nursery at your mother's house, prepared for a child that hasn't been born yet, while simultaneously claiming your wife is unfit. His lawyer tried to speak. The judge held up her hand. I'm not finished. Mrs. Carter, would you like to add anything? I stood, 7 months pregnant, standing in a courtroom facing the man I'd married, the man who'd planned to steal our daughter before she was even conceived. Your Honor, I'd like to submit one more piece of evidence. I played the recording, the one from 2 nights ago. Nick and Melissa in our living room, my living room, rehearsing their testimony. Nick's voice came through crystal clear. You'll cry when you talk about her drinking. Make it seem like you're trying to protect her. The judge will eat it up. Melissa's response. And you'll be the concerned husband, the one who tried everything. They'll give you custody, you'll give me the baby, and Harper will be too broken to fight. Then Nick again, the part that made my hands shake, even now. I never wanted this baby with her anyway. But this way, I get out, you get what you want, and nobody can say I didn't try. The judge's expression could have frozen hell. She looked at Nick, at Melissa, back at the evidence. Mr. Carter, I'm denying your petition for emergency custody. Mrs. Carter, I'm granting you sole legal and physical custody of your unborn child. Additionally, I'm issuing a restraining order. Mr. Carter, you are to have no contact with your wife, or, once born, your daughter. Ms. Green, you are to have no contact with Mrs. Carter or the child. I'm also referring this case to the district attorney for investigation of fraud, stalking, and conspiracy. Nick finally found his voice. You can't, she's lying. The evidence says otherwise. And, Mr. Carter, that recording where you admitted you never wanted this child? That just cost you any future custody rights. This hearing is adjourned. I walked out of that courtroom with my hand on my belly, Tony beside me, in the absolute certainty that my daughter would never, ever be taken from me. Nick's lawyer caught me in the hallway. Mrs. Carter, my client would like to discuss. Tell your client, I said calmly, that he can discuss things with his criminal defense attorney, because I'm pressing every charge I can. Fraud, emotional abuse, conspiracy, all of it. 3 weeks later, I delivered a healthy baby girl. 8 pounds, 3 ounces. She had my eyes. Sarah was there. Tony brought flowers. Ethan, the PI who'd found Melissa's apartment and her disturbing nursery, sent a card. Nick wasn't there. Per the restraining order, he wasn't allowed within 500 feet. Melissa was facing multiple charges. Nick's mother had been banned from any contact after we proved she'd known about the entire plan. I named my daughter Grace, because despite everything, despite the betrayal and the fear and the fight, we'd found Grace. We'd survived. 2 years later, I'm remarried. To Ethan, actually. The PI. Turns out investigating my case made him want to protect us for life. Grace calls him Daddy. She doesn't know about Nick. Maybe one day I'll tell her. Maybe I won't. Nick pays child support for a daughter he'll never meet. Every month, money arrives for a little girl whose first word was Dada, spoken to a man who chose to love her, not the man who tried to steal her. Melissa spent 6 months in jail and 2 years in mandated psychiatric treatment. Last I heard, she'd moved 3 states away. Sometimes I still check my rearview mirror out of habit, but mostly, I focus on Grace, on her laugh, on her tiny hands, on the life we built after everything nearly fell apart. People ask me sometimes how I stayed so calm, how I planned instead of panicking, how I fought back instead of falling apart. The answer's simple. I was fighting for my daughter, and there's nothing a mother won't do to protect her child. So here's what I learned. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Document everything, every text, every conversation, every moment, and never, ever underestimate what you're capable of when someone threatens your family. Nick thought I was weak. Melissa thought I was easy to manipulate. They both thought pregnancy made me vulnerable. They were wrong. What would you have done in my position? Would you have fought back or would you have run? Drop a comment because I read every single one. And if you're going through something similar right now, know this. You're stronger than you think. You're smarter than they believe. And you absolutely can win.